want to have risk in your gold, then do that with your mining stocks. Take the risk there, because there, at least the upside is worth the risk. The extra upside of your tiny little interest from loaning out your gold isn't close to compensating you for what you could lose if the loan goes bad. So you got lots of downside and minimal upside. Whereas with gold mining stocks, you have massive upside, far more than your downside. So keep your, your more conservative money in your physical gold, and this is of your gold portfolio. And then to get the extra return, just go into the mining stocks. Forget about these gold loans. Andromeda. Your father was a great man and inspired me. You honor his name. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words regarding my father. John Werner, why is Kyle Bass so negative on China? Why are you so bullish? Look, I know that Bass has been negative on China, on the currency, on Hong Kong for a long time. And I'm not, saying that he is wrong, that, there are, problems in China. There are. I mean, there are problems everywhere. And I think a lot of the problems that exist in China stem from the mistake that they made a long time ago to peg their currency to the dollar. I think it has caused them to make bad decisions in order to maintain this relationship. And so I do think that there are problems, but I'm comparing the things that are wrong with China to the things that are right with China. And I think overall, when you look at the negatives and the positives, I think the positives outweigh the negatives. Not that the negatives don't exist, just that they're outweighed by the positives. On the flip side, I think in the United States, it's the reverse. I think the negatives right now outweigh the positives. So I don't think that Kyle Bass should look at all of the problems that exist in China and the United States and come to the conclusion that China is in more trouble than the United States. I think it's the reverse. So I don't think that the big money is going to be made shorting China or shorting yuan. I just think that that's a mistake. And I think for whatever reason, Bass is focused on the forest and he can't see the trees. That's the problem. So and there are other people out there that see problems, but that also, are very bullish on China too. So I think that part of the world is going to ultimately dominate this century. And it's still early. I mean, we're in the second decade of this century. And so it's got a long time to go. But I think that China will overtake the United States, early in this century. I mean, maybe in the next decade, to be the dominant economy in the world. Will the United States be able to overtake China before the century comes to an end? Maybe, hopefully. But I think we're going to fall far behind before we ever catch up. And it's going to take some serious reforms in order for the United States to regain what it's going to lose. But I think China's in a good position. Despite the problems, I think they'll overcome them. Look, America overcame problems too to get to the point that we got to. But we made a lot of mistakes, and now we're going to have to deal with the consequences of those mistakes. And we've dealt with them, but we're going to have to deal with them in a far more profound way. TMG Capital. Peter, first and foremost, God bless you and your family. Secondly, Puerto Rico has been in a long recession. Do you see big business and millionaires moving there? Look, a lot of people are moving here. I mean, I've never seen anything like this in the years that I've been there as far as the number of people coming now. I mean, there's a big rush again, another wave of people coming into Puerto Rico. I can see that. Real estate's getting snapped up. And I think that's going to pick up. I mean, if Biden does win and taxes go up the way they're proposing, then a lot more people are going to be, seeking refuge here to the extent that, the refuge is still here to the extent that Puerto Rico is still a territory, which is the most likely situation for Puerto Rico. I think more and more people are going to be coming here. And yeah, I mean, it's going to benefit Puerto Rico dramatically. I mean, the people who are coming here, they're not just coming here to retire. They're coming here to run businesses, to grow businesses, to add to the local economy, to provide goods and services, to provide employment opportunities. I mean, there's all sorts of positives that are coming from young, energetic, hardworking entrepreneurs that are relocating to Puerto Rico. I mean, the loss is for the states that they're leaving. They're losing the benefit of those talents and those efforts and those tax revenues. And Puerto Rico is gaining all that. I mean, Puerto Rico doesn't have zero taxes. The people that are coming here are still paying taxes. Puerto Rico is getting something, whereas before they got here, they were getting nothing. But they don't just get the taxes being paid by the people who moved there. They get an expanded tax base because people who are living here now have more employment opportunities and they have higher wages. And so they pay more taxes. There's more economic activity. So there's more taxation there, and so it's just a win for the island. And I hope it continues. Trying to see if there's any movement here in the election. Not seeing much. The Dow futures now up about 170 points. So again, I mean, they're trading in positive side, positive territory. Let me look at what's going on. The dollar is still up near the highs. But again, I mean, these are not big moves. I mean, other than the yuan, I mean, 60 basis points, a little bit big. I mean, the Australian dollar was up like 1.25% today. Even though they had a rate cut, or some easing in Australia, and the currency was up. So the Aussie dollar hasn't even surrendered 40% of what it gained during the day. The dollar is very weak today. And again, I think it was weak on anticipation of a Biden win. And I think now the markets are maybe starting to factor in that maybe Trump will win. I still think that that's not the case. I mean, I hope that I'm wrong. Maybe Trump can pull it off. But I still don't think it's going to happen. I just don't see the hidden support that Trump enjoyed in 2016 being there again in 2020. But we'll see. We'll see. Let me see what the next question is here. Where are my questions? Any thoughts on the Canadian markets? Do you think they will witness a 08 style crisis? Household debt, income is high. Look, there's a lot of problems in Canada, but I do think that some of these problems will be at least papered over by the boom in resources. I do think energy prices are going to come back. That's going to benefit Canada. I mean, the oil and gas market has suffered there with, $30, $40 oil with the pandemic. So I think that's going to come back. I think the mining sector is going to really boom. I think so. I think that's going to work to the advantage of Canada. I think a resurgence of China will benefit Canadian trade with China. So, I mean, I think Canada, and I've been saying this for a while, I think Canada is better positioned or will be better positioned than the United States. And again, Americans have lived beyond their means to a much greater degree because of the trade deficits that have been sustained by the dollar as the reserve currency. And I think this dynamic is going to come to an end. And so it's going to be far more profound the way it affects the American economy than the way it affects the Canadian economy. Peter, what would you guess the percentage difference in total taxes, federal, state, local, property, etc., between a place like Chicago and Puerto Rico? Look, local taxes in Puerto Rico are much higher than they are in any of the states. And the only reason that's possible is because Puerto Rico doesn't have the federal tax to burden their taxpayers. If Puerto Ricans were paying the federal income tax on their wages and other income, the Puerto Rico government would not be able to be as large as it is, and it would not be able to levy the taxes that it's currently levying because the Puerto Ricans would not be able to pay them. The Puerto Ricans couldn't bear the burden of both the federal tax regime and the Puerto Rican tax regime. Now, because Puerto Ricans were spared that burden, that enabled the local politicians to place